Last weekend, I spent 21 hours on Chrono Odyssey, an action MMORPG that was open for a first beta test. In this video, I will try to explain to you everything I know about the game. And for that, I decided to record the full 21 hours I spent on it during the beta, so you will see a lot of gameplay during that video. Before talking about anything else, I would like to explain the goal of that first beta test and show you what they told us about the issues we encountered during the weekend and what they are planning to work on to provide a better experience in the future. They wrote, in this closed beta, bugs and unexpected issues are not only possible, they are expected. The purpose of this phase is to stress test our servers, gameplay systems and content with a large number of players and identify any issues that may arise across the different scenarios. Someone posted on X these two pictures comparing Chrono Odyssey's 2023 gameplay reveal versus the closed beta. To that, the CEO answered, the version from the end of last year was the FGT version, and that's the one we were aiming for at the time. FGT for functional ground test, I suppose, a kind of controlled version to test some key features only without overloading the system with all existing content. Personally, I don't know what to think about it. I just know that the first impression when you start a game is the most important one to forge people's opinion, and when you mess with it, then you get a lot of negative reviews and lose a large part of the audience. But the team also said, our internal development build has improved significantly since then, so we hope you will definitely join us on the second closed beta test, supposing that the game will be polished and closer to the final version for the next closed beta test. Honestly, most of the visual issues we had during the beta are very easy to fix, but I have more concern about the game optimization. With an RTX 4070, an i5 3rd generation and 64 GB of RAM, I had an average of 50 FPS with graphics sets on high. For instance, these are the tests I made with the settings. Everything to the highest first, my FPS dropped to 20, which was absolutely unplayable. Then everything set to epic, but the illumination, the shadows and the reflection to high, with a 75% of the resolution scale. I was around 40 FPS in average. Then everything set to high and the resolution scale fixed at 25% only, my FPS increased to 55. Then, with higher graphics and lower resolution scale, my FPS went up to reach 70, but I had a lot of artifacts on distant objects now. So at the end, I went back to my previous settings. By the way, I had visual and optimization issues only around the first town. Then almost everything was fine in the other areas, looking and running better, especially dungeon instances. And some of these zones looked exactly the same as some that they showed us in the trailer. So in my opinion, they just need time to polish the other zones and the game will look as they told us. Furthermore, at the end of the beta, they said, we are currently prioritizing improvements to key gameplay elements such as the movement controls, animations, and combat responsiveness. Our goal is to refine these systems to provide a more immersive and polished experience. Performance and system stability issues are also undergoing in-depth review. We are committed to resolving these issues to ensure a more stable and more reliable gameplay experience. In addition, we are actively addressing bugs, optimization challenges, and user interface, user experience related inconveniences identified during the test. In my opinion, I feel like this is not that bad that they received a lot of negative feedbacks. Now they know exactly what they need to work on in priority, and it can just help the game being better at the end. Personally, I'm okay if the game is released in 1 year or more, if in the end the game is great. And to that, they said, personally, I'm a huge fan of Baldur's Gate 3, and I know it took nearly 3 years of early access for that masterpiece to become what it is today. We intend to keep that same unwavering faith in our product and continue giving it our all. In addition, they also say that some improvements have already been made ahead of time, including enhanced combat field and hit feedback, improved monster AI, strengthened systems for strategically developing your character, initial rounds of optimization, and addition of rare gear to the loot system. Now, just to be clear, many people absolutely love the gameplay and I'm part of these people, and many others didn't like it at all. But to that, they also said, we are not necessarily trying to become the best MMO out here. Instead, we simply hope that Chrono Odyssey will be remembered as a meaningful IP, one that players can connect with and care about. The game includes some experimental ideas, and we know that it may not be for everyone, but we are building it for those who truly resonate with what Chrono Odyssey is. And personally, I am part of these guys. I absolutely love the experience I had during the weekend, and I wanted some more. And personally, the main issues I encountered were, first, the broken lock system, which is unusable at all unless your goal is to see the ground better. Then the character movement. I personally don't care about the animation, but the movement is crucial in a video game, and jumping needs a big change in this one. Jumping when running makes you roll, but you can't cancel the roll, and you are always missing the platform and falling down because of that. But the problem is that you will want to run after missing 10 times a moving platform, because when you jump, you can't move at all. In fact, your character is locked in the jumping animation and you can go only in one direction until the end of the animation. And if you want to double jump, it's gonna redo the same. You are just gonna go in a second direction and that's all. You need to wait until the end of the animation. This is rigid as fuck and it needs to change. Something else that is completely broken, the collision with some enemies, and especially the world bosses. For this one, for example, I am stuck in the feet of the golem. I just can't dodge the attacks. Of course I can go back, but if I try to dodge, it doesn't work, so I take the hit. In comparison, on this one, there is absolutely no collision at all, so I can basically go through the boss here. Alright guys, so that was all I had to say about the main issues I encountered during the beta. Of course, there is a ton of other bugs that they will fix, of course, because they are mostly minor bugs. But now guys, it is finally time to talk about everything else, and Jesus, I loved a ton of things in that game, you will see that. And let me just say that I am not the only one that appreciated the beta test. Just need to look at the reaction of people on the Discord after they closed the access. That said, let's talk about the story. Kronos, the god of time, created 12 planets across the vast universe. Your journey starts in Cetera, one of these 12 worlds that was once a world of abundance and life. Magellan, another planet, was facing the famine and desolation. Betelgeuse, a sentinel coming from Magellan, decided to unleash the void and invade the other planets. Cetera was no exception. In order to defend themselves, Cetera's people ventured into the legendary ruins of time, where they found the ancient relic of Kronos, the Chronotector. But unfortunately, it was already too late. As you were fighting the void on the last front of Cetera, the Sentinel Velia appeared and used the Chronotector to send you 1 year in the past, leaving behind a message.
Find me there. Bring word that the future has changed.
So that was the story, and it looks very dark, and I love that. And the enemies look like some aliens that invaded the Earth. Just need to look at their ship, it looks like the one we have in the movie Alien Prometheus. And your goal in this world as a newly awakened sentinel is to recover the power of the Chronotector and beat the void. Now let me introduce you the different classes. Before accessing the character creation, you need to choose which class you want to play. The game counts 6 classes in total, but only 3 were available during the beta. Each class can use up to 3 unique weapons specific to them, but you can equip only 2 at once. Each weapon has its own level, active and passive skill sets, and special move. Switching weapons is very important in battle to apply various effects and maximize your efficiency, no matter your class, no matter the weapons. For example, the class I played the most during the beta was the Berserker. Most of the time I was switching to the battle axe to convert some HP into a shield, then I was sparring to increase my attack before switching back to the chain blades, apply some bloodthirst stacks on me to heal over time and increase my crit damage. Casting skills with the battle axe can also reduce the damage you take, and you can mitigate the damage received by blocking the attacks when you run out of stamina. I haven't played much with the twin axes. The Swordsman, when holding the shield, is the tank by excellence. Many of his skills can taunt and increase the threat to take the aggro, knock back enemies and stun them. His special ability, if used at the right time, allows him to perfect parry with the shield to cancel the enemy's action and perform a very strong counter-attack. The Great Sword is a bit slow as the Battle Axe is for the Berserker, but increases your attack and deals pretty good AoE damage. I haven't played much with the dual blades. Unfortunately, same comments about the Ranger. I only completed the introduction and reached the first camp to decide which class I wanted to play first. The Ranger holds two ranged weapons, the bow and the crossbow, the bow being a bit slower but hitting harder than the crossbow, which one is better on a single target to execute fast attacks from a distance. The third weapon is the rapier, executing very fast attacks compared to the other melee weapons we could try during the beta. Oh, by the way, just in case you ask, no, you are not forced to die on the first boss. In fact, even if you beat him on or over time, it will still trigger the same cutscene, but you are not forced to die. The assassin can use two melee weapons, the saber and the wrist blade. The saber will probably be slower than the wrist blade, but deal higher burst damage, as the bow is with the crossbow for the ranger. The third weapon usable by the assassin is the musket, a ranged weapon probably used to weaken the target from a distance before falling on them. The sorcerer will deal high magical damage to enemies with the staff, weaken targets with the mana sphere and heal allies with the grimoire. And finally, the paladin is supposed to be a healer and a team buffer when using the mace, deflects enemies' attacks with the lance and perform AoE attacks with the halberd. After choosing your class, you need to create your character. To be honest, the character creation tool is pretty well made. You can customize a lot your character, but don't expect to have deep details on the face. I mean, if your goal is to replicate the face of your favorite actor or your own face, for example, it won't be extremely accurate, but you can probably manage to do something good enough. On another hand, I don't know if you've ever played to Ark Survival Evolved, but if you enjoyed creating a Monstrosity, then you might be happy because you can do even worse in Chrono Odyssey.
Oh my lord.
Oh my god!
I personally found it very fun at the beginning, but I'm pretty sure that over time it will break the immersion in the world. Oh wait, in fact, after the first closed beta test, they decided to put some limitation on the character creation to avoid these bad characters. They said, we wanted to see how far players' creativity could go to let imagination take form without any limitation. However, this closed beta test completely changed our perspective. We were shocked to see characters intentionally designed to look as strange and uncomfortable as possible, even to the point of distorting the beloved character models our team worked so hard on. So for the next test, they decided to put some limitation in place. So now, let me show you the 4 characters I created during the beta. And now you have some more created by other players, and you can see that the quality of the character creation is very interesting. I mean, you can really create the character you want. Difficulty and character progression. This is the part that I enjoy the most in the game. Generally, in all MMORPGs, everyone can rush through the content without ever encountering the slightest difficulty. Sometimes it takes between 10 to 30 hours to start having some real challenge and start enjoying the game. Sometimes you need hours and hours before even unlocking your skills. Furthermore, in most MMOs, the gear you loot and craft is always useless or has a very small impact on your character. This is not what I felt in this game. You start with 2 weapons, get a few active and passive skills very early after killing a few enemies and leveling up your weapons, and you get some character experience by doing absolutely everything like killing enemies, completing some quests, and even gathering and crafting. The combat is dynamic, exigent and challenging. To give you an idea, even the first enemies encountered can kill you very easy the time you'll need to learn the movements and the playstyle of your class. During the exploration, you will also find many world bosses that are extremely hard to beat but challenging if you don't have the recommended gear and if you want to try to not hit them. If you don't like the difficulty, don't worry, just need to spend some time exploring the map, gathering materials, crafting better gear, working on skills and weapon synergies, and your character efficiency will improve significantly. By the way, before continuing, let me pause that 1 second so I can explain to you a few things about the skills of your character so you know about it. On the left, with the first weapon I have equipped on my character, I have 4 main skills plus the special move in the middle, and you have the same on the right with the secondary weapon, so 8 skills in total plus 2 special moves. On the right, on the slots number 5, 6, 7 and 8, you have some classy skill. And right in the middle, between the two gauge, you have the Chronotector skill. And in combat, you just need to open the wheel to select another skill, which one won't have the same cooldown. So 14 skills in total, plus the Chronotector skills. And to that, count all the passives that you can have on the different weapons and the passives that you can have on the Chronotector skills to increase the efficiency. With all of these, you can basically create very different builds and very efficient ones. Talking about the Chronotector, by the way, this mechanic is pretty unique to Chrono Odyssey. You can basically modify the time, reverse the time, stop the time in a radius for a specific duration. You can also summon some bosses that you encounter in the Chrono Gates, and in a way, it reminds me what is doing the character Sung Jin-woo in solo leveling. I told you, the game mechanics are very interesting. Equipment, gathering and crafting. In Chrono Odyssey, you can equip 2 weapons, 6 armors, 4 accessories, 4 consumables, 5 gathering tools, and a campfire. You have different rarities on the gear with the same color codes as in every game of the genre, from grey to orange for the legendary gear. Then on the beta, we had some tier from 1 to 5, the higher the tier, the higher the level required, and the more the stats given by the item. Furthermore, you can enhance your gear to +1, +2, +3, etc. For now, I don't know what is the limit. Every piece of gear has an equipment score defining its base stats. One more time, the higher the score, the higher the stats given by the gear. From what I've seen, the gear found in chests in the open world or dropped by normal enemies always had a lower gear score than the gear obtained in dungeons, the best gear being the one you craft. But when you craft some gear, the score is randomized between a mean and max value. Something very interesting that you need to know about: when you get some gear through the exploration on whatever the content, you can dismantle the gear to get the crafting materials back. So even getting some bad gear can help you to improve your build. By the way, I don't know yet if we will have some set effects in the game. The only thing I've seen during the beta was different stats provided by different sets. For example, I equipped only crit rate gear on my character and I already had close to 50% crit rate at the level 15. The gear sets can give you some crit rate, crit resistance, damage reduction or damage boost. The jewels can give you some crit rate, skill cooldown reduction, some attack, HP or stamina recovery per second for example, plus some main stats. Sometimes you have special effects provided by some gear, and in case you want, you can find an NPC to move a special effect from one gear to another. Special effects can boost your combat efficiency but also your gathering mastery. Finally, on weapons, armors and jewels, you can equip some gems to add various effects. The only one I dropped could increase the efficiency of one of my skills, for example. By the way, I equipped twice the same and you can see that it's increasing only by +1 the level of my skill. Concerning gathering and crafting, it never took me a lot of time to get the resources required to craft any piece of gear I wanted. The main reason is that multiple resources can be used to craft the same items. It's available for the leather, the wood and potions for example. But that was until I unlocked a new recipe after completing a quest to craft an ancient weapon. I needed to craft 3 primitive iron ingots, each requiring 15 primitive iron ore and 1 void matter. Basically, to get the primitive iron ore, you need to kill that golem here. During the fight, he drops some rocks on the ground that you can gather to get 1 ore per rock only, but the issue was that many players were farming it and I could get only 2 or maybe 3 maximum, when I was lucky every 5 to 10 minutes, which is the time you need to wait before the boss respawns. For the void matter, you have a very strong world boss spawning during an event and you can get 1 every time you beat him. Regarding the food and the potions now, the bad thing is that it requires a ton of gathering materials to craft a decent amount. It really felt like the developers didn't want people to use potions in that game. For example, you feel that through the 1 minute cooldown you have after using a potion, which can be very punishing if you take too many hits too fast, because then you just need to run away, in fact, the time you need to recover the potion again. The food in that game is very helpful though. You can use 4 or maybe 5 max at once, I don't exactly remember, but it increases a lot your stats for 30 minutes. Something great about the craft is that you have a warehouse in which you can put a ton of crafting materials to do some space in your inventory, for example, and when crafting, everything in your warehouse can be used without the need of having it in your inventory. Speaking of which, I don't really understand why, but we have a weight limit. In an MMORPG, of course you can carry more than the limit, but then it lowers your movement speed, and it happened to me during a team dungeon right after looting a normal enemy. That was very annoying. Fortunately, your strength seems to increase your weight. One more thing about the gathering, I feel like the map is very well designed around that, because you have gathering materials absolutely everywhere and on different spots on the map, so I feel like even if you will have a lot of players playing the game on the same map, you won't lack resources together. Open world and content. Right after the game's introduction, you appear in that cave, and instead of having the full flat area we generally have in MMORPGs, plus the generic NPCs giving you some crazy amount of boring quests, asking you to basically rush the map exploration by running here and there for your progression, here, things are different. Game developers decided to elevate the terrain to force people to climb, telling them basically that jumping and climbing, exploration in fact, will be the main word of the open world. Right after that cave, you can see their intention to guide players by catching their eyes with close and distant objects. Fences, logs on the ground, torches, flags to guide your way to the first camp, and then you find that building here with some blue lights in the middle, asking you implicitly to activate it without some useless text or markers on the screen as most recent games are doing. When you activate the tower, the map opens and uncovers the region. Then you see some other similar buildings on the map, so you have a kind of route to follow. It might not seem to be a lot for you, but with only these small details, you understand that the developers worked a lot on the level design of the game. A subtle system that works perfectly well in that game. By the way, if you want the proof that they work actively on the level design of the game, you have that message that I found on X. We chose to use a compass-based navigation system because we wanted players to explore the world more intuitively, spotting distant landmarks or objects from a backview perspective like a treasure hunt. Including a mini-map would go against the kind of gameplay experience we are aiming for, so it's unlikely we will implement one in the future. So if you were one of those expecting to have a minimap some days, then you have your answer here. Example, right after that building, I see that big ass monster far away, way bigger than the other enemies in the area. So I directly understand that it will be a very hard encounter and that it will be one of my objectives later. This is a regional boss. You find 1 or 2 in every region of the world, and when you kill them, they give you some materials to enchant your gear. By the way, right before that boss here, you see some soldiers fighting some monsters, and this is something happening in many regions of the game, and sometimes you will come across 2 different enemies fighting each other, making the world feeling alive. Example with that dragon here that I found in a trial. Trials are solo instances in which you will find 5 different rooms, each one having its own challenge for a total of maybe 10 or maybe more different challenges. At the end of every room, you get some rewards such as gold, recipes and trial tokens to exchange at the entrance. You have 5 keys, so 5 entries per week. One more thing at the beginning when you start the game, in the first outpost where you find the first quest, some broken and that big guy here are attacking the soldiers, and they are not useless here because in fact they really deal some damage to them and they can even kill them alone. But hey, I'm pretty sure that after seeing that big guy here, you will try to kill it yourself, and that's a good idea because in fact, when you kill him, it drops a key to enter the first solo time portal, an instance that instantly pops on the map with a new quest telling you that these will be important. And it is! Time portals are instances in which you need to deactivate some pillars and kill a few enemies before facing the boss and looting a chest. Chests in which you get some gems to equip on your gear and jewels. You will find some solo and multiplayer time portals in Chrono Odyssey, and talking about multiplayer by the way, there wasn't any matchmaking in the beta. You have a social group feature to create or join a group and that's all. In order to find teammates, we need to find a group on Discord or wait at the entrance for people to come. The good thing is that you see the time portals from far away and it attracts people, so one more time, a good level design. Same comments about the party dungeons. Here, it was the first dungeon, and as you can see when I arrived, people were waiting for a third party member to enter. In that dungeon, you need to follow the path, kill some normal and elite enemies, an intermediate boss, activate some levers, kill a lot of enemies again, and finally kill the final boss at the end, which one is, to be honest, very hard to beat. He deals very high damage, and when you die, if your teammates can't revive you in time, then you get teleported at the entrance, and you can't enter the boss area if one of your teammates is still fighting. To be honest, that dungeon was very fun and rewarding, giving some nice tier 3 blue gear with pretty high equipment score, plus some gear enchanting materials as the region bosses on the map. By exploring the world, you will encounter a ton of various events, enemies patrols, small towers with a chest on top of it, some kind of broken tablets to repair and activate for your codex, or why not even some bounties. You'll find the bounties on the board when entering the first town. You can only take one at a time. It shows you the location on the map, but not the exact place of the target you need to kill. In a way, it forces you to explore, try to find a cave or a ravine in the zone, and I love that. In another way, if someone already killed your target, you might not know it was supposed to be here and waste some time looking for it. Completing bounties is very important in that game. It increases your bounties level and gives you permanent stats on your character. During your journey, you will also find some labyrinths, some instances in which you will need to jump a lot to find your way through a ton of static and moving platforms. You need to activate some pillars to highlight the right way to go and memorize it, kill some enemies and sometimes some bosses. At the end, you will get some points to allocate to your Chronotector. Speaking of which, if you want to make your Chronotector progress, unlock new time skills and summons and get more points to upgrade it, then you need to follow the main quest asking you to find the Chrono Gates. These are solo instances in which you need to beat a very powerful boss that you can contract later to summon him in battle. In Chrono Odyssey, side quests were pretty generic, asking to gather and craft something specific or kill some enemies, complete some dungeons, etc. We didn't have many during the beta, but the combat was so satisfying that it was never boring to complete them. Finally, during the exploration, we could find some vaults, but unfortunately that content wasn't available during the beta. Concerning PvP, the only feature available in-game was the PvP mode. You needed to activate it, and you could attack only other players who had that mode activated as well. That is what we had for now. In the future, they are planning to add some 3v3 or 5v5 arenas if we want them to, but what is certain at the moment is that they are already working on a mode, player versus environment versus player. In fact, this will be a kind of infinite place in which you will encounter some very strong enemies, loot some good stuff, and in which other players can basically try to kill you to steal your loot. Personally, I can't wait to try that mode, but unfortunately it wasn't available during the beta. Alright guys, I think I covered everything, or at least almost everything I wanted. Let me know what you think about the game, if you played it and enjoyed it as I did, if you plan to play it again on the next beta, and if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and say cuckoo in the comments. Have a great day, that was Akhtar, see you later.